You've probably spent a few evenings scrolling through endless specs, trying to decide if a CNC plasma table is worth the space on your shop floor or in your garage. You want something that just works, that won't chew up your budget, and that you won't spend months tinkering with before you actually cut metal. The fear of buying a machine that looks great on paper, but ends up as a pricey paperweight is real, especially when you're juggling a full-time job and a side hobby. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started looking at entry-level CNC plasma tables, the first thing I noticed was how many brands try to sell you a factory-grade setup at a hobbyist price. That usually means you get a lot of bells and whistles that require a professional environment, industrial-grade ventilation, dedicated coolant systems, or a massive steel frame that you can't move. The real question is whether those extras actually translate into day-to-day value for a small shop or a serious DIY. The Eastwood VersaCut 4x8 CNC plasma table lands squarely in the middle of that spectrum. It's marketed as a mobile workshop solution that can handle a full 4x8 sheet, offers advanced height control, and works on either 110V or 220V. Those are the headline claims, but let's dig into what they mean when you actually fire it up. First, the sheet size. A 4x8 capability is a game changer if you've ever tried to cut multiple parts from a single piece of metal. In my own workshop, I was constantly wrestling with a smaller 2x4 table that forced me to split a sheet into two loads, then reposition the material for the second pass. That extra handling not only ate up time, it also introduced alignment errors. With the VersaCut's full-size bed, you can lay out a whole batch of brackets, mounting plates, or decorative panels, run the cut, and walk away with a single, cleanly divided sheet. That's where the maximum sheet yield feature actually saves you money on material. Height control is another practical point. In a manual plasma cutter, you're constantly adjusting the torch height by eye, which can lead to inconsistent kerf width and a rough finish. The VersaCut's advanced height control system lets you set the torch at a precise distance from the workpiece, and the machine maintains it throughout the cut. In real use, I found that the edge quality stayed more uniform, especially on thin-gauge steel, where a few millimeters of variance can cause the cut to wander. It's not a laser-grade tolerance, but for most hobby and small shop projects it's more than adequate. The dual-voltage flexibility is worth a mention because it can be a hidden cost saver. If your garage only has 110V outlets, you can still run the table just at a slightly lower power level. When you move the machine into a larger shop with 220V service, you can plug it into a higher capacity circuit and get that extra punch for thicker material. That means you don't have to decide up front which power scenario you'll be in, the table adapts. Mobility is a claim you see a lot, but the reality is mixed. The VersaCut's frame is built on a set of lockable caster wheels, and the overall weight is listed as industrial, which translates to roughly 1,300 pounds. That's light enough to roll out of a garage, but you'll need a couple of people, or a pallet jack to get it moving the first time. Once it's positioned, the wheels lock solid, so there's no wobble during a cut. If you're a shop owner who needs to rearrange equipment frequently, the mobility is a plus, but if you expected a tabletop you could pick up and carry alone, you'll be disappointed. Now, the practical downsides. The first is the learning curve. Even though the software that ships with the VersaCut is fairly intuitive, you still have to spend time calibrating the torch, setting the correct feed rates, and tweaking the height control parameters for each new material thickness. If you're coming from a purely manual plasma cutter, that extra setup time can feel like a step backward before the efficiency gains kick in. Second, the table doesn't include a built-in air filtration system. That's fine if you have a well-ventilated shop, but it's a hidden expense if you need to invest in a separate exhaust hood. Finally, the price point sits in a gray zone. It's cheaper than a full industrial CNC plasma line, yet more expensive than a basic manual table. With only 9 Amazon reviews and an average rating of 3.9, the feedback is sparse enough that you're essentially betting on the specs and the Eastwood brand reputation. So who should actually consider the VersaCut? If you're a serious hobbyist who already owns a decent plasma torch, and you want to add CNC precision without committing to a massive industrial system, this machine hits a sweet spot. It's also a solid entry for a small fabrication shop that needs to produce small batches of custom metal parts. Think automotive brackets, signage,